Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to get moving and shape up. My name is Brock Armstrong, and I am the Get Fit Guy. In the fitness world, a complex is several exercises strung together to move your entire body in one non-stop routine. And, as you'll find out during this podcast, when combined with a barbell, this type of training not only benefits your overall muscle mass, but it also pushes the limits of your endurance, your coordination, your mobility, athleticism, and general strength. Now, a fellow named Istvan Dvorak is said to be the brains behind barbell complex training, and it's fabled that he first brought his complex routines to North America back in the 1980s, after he defected from Romania. Now, word has it that he initially developed this type of training as a way to, and I quote, find an efficient and aggressive method of performance enhancement that saves time and makes the program more enjoyable. End quote. All right, so let's take a look at barbell complexes and see if Istvan hit his mark. So first of all, a barbell complex is any series of movements that are done back to back using a barbell. A set number of repetitions, or reps, is completed for each movement before shifting immediately onto the next. What makes a barbell complex unique and difficult and also effective is that the weight never leaves your hands until the entire series is complete. Now, for example, a simple and very common barbell complex is called the clean and press. Now, in this exercise, the ending movement of the clean, which is pulling the barbell up to your chest, is the starting movement of the press, which is pressing the barbell over your head and straightening your arms and legs. Now, one of the biggest reasons people include barbell complexes in their workout regimen is that they are a great way to include some cardio in your training program without the need to do the traditional cardio stuff like running, cycling, or aerobics. Cardio is actually something that most weightlifters and bodybuilders see as their enemy. Now, complexes allow you to raise your heart rate, get out of breath, do a series of movements that last a few minutes each, and also throw some heavy weights around, all at the same time. Now, another reason that people like them is that barbell complexes are quick and do not take a lot of time to bust out. All you need is 20 or 30 minutes to do an effective barbell complex workout. They can take longer, but with this type of high output workout, it's often true that less is more. And because of their ability to effectively boost your heart rate, barbell complexes make doing cardio more interesting and less repetitive. If you're tired of your usual heart rate raising routine, well, this can be an exciting way to mix it up. Also, when you do a barbell complex, you use a lighter load than you would if you were doing just one lift. And this has a few benefits, but one of the biggest is that you can work on your technique and your form while stimulating neuromuscular coordination. So let's take a look at the ways you can use barbell complexes in your workout, and then I'll give you some quick and dirty tips. There are a number of ways you can use barbell complexes in your workout. The first one is as a warm-up. Now, if you're doing them as a warm-up, make sure you use very light weights and choose a complex that moves your entire body through a full range of motion. Also, choose movements that will prepare your body for the workout that is ahead. For instance, don't do a complex that focuses on your shoulder and chest if your main set is going to be mostly legs. Be specific. Use a light weight or an empty bar and you will be warm in no time. Now, the next way you can use barbell complexes is as an accessory lift. Now, if you're doing your barbell complexes as an accessory lift to enhance the workout in any areas that you may not have hit as hard as you want it, make sure you choose a complex that includes complementary lifts to the rest of your workout. Let's say it's a leg day and you don't feel like you hit your calf muscles hard enough. Well, make sure you choose a complex that involves your lower legs. The other way you can use barbell complexes is as a finisher. And if you're doing the barbell complex as a finisher, which is the last thing you do before you start your cool down, well, choose a high rep complex for a few rounds to make sure you haven't left, as they say, anything on the bench. And the final way you can use a barbell complex is as a standalone workout. Using a few barbell complexes as a standalone workout can save you some time, especially if your goals include improving your overall conditioning and body composition. And don't worry, I will give you some complexes to choose from later in this episode. When you are preparing for a complex lifting session, especially if you haven't done them before, well, here are some tips that you can keep in mind. Number 1, choose an appropriate weight. Remember that you will be using the same barbell for the entire complex, so choose your weight based on your weakest lift. For example, if you have an overhead press and a bicep curl in the complex, make sure the weight you choose allows you to perform both of those movements correctly. Now, personally, I can press a lot more than I can curl, so choosing a weight based on my press would be a mistake. Now, number 2 is to mind your form. Keep a close eye on your form, always. Now, although you are lifting a lighter load during a complex, that doesn't mean you can throw your technique out the window. Good form and proper technique is always a must to prevent injury or strain. Now, my third tip is to increase the challenge. Over time, you will get stronger and more proficient, and you can increase the weight that you're lifting. But increasing the weight isn't the only way to make the complexes more challenging. You can also add more sets per round, do more reps, or shorten the rest periods. Any of these will take a complex that has gotten easy and up the ante. And the next tip is to work your entire body. For the biggest bang for your buck, choose full body complexes that work with many joints, many limbs, and as many planes of movement as possible. The Dan-John complex that I'll talk about in a moment is a perfect example of this. By alternating movements such as the clean, the overhead press, and a weighted squat, you can maximize your workout. Now, the next tip is to pay attention to strength versus conditioning. Choose your rep number based on whether you want to perform a strength set or a conditioning set. For strength, keep the reps low, 3 to 5 would do, and the weights heavier. For a conditioning set, you can go up to 8 or maybe 10 reps, but you'll want to use a slightly lighter weight. And the next tip is to make your rest periods a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, for example, if a complex takes you 3 minutes to perform it, then your rest break should also be 3 minutes. However, as I mentioned earlier, this factor can be altered to raise the difficulty level of your workout. And the next tip is to keep your sets to 3 or fewer. Now, if you're doing a complex properly, it should be challenging. When you finish, you should feel pretty wiped out. If you have completed 3 sets and you still think you can do more, well, that's a good sign you need to increase the weight, increase the reps, or shorten your rest periods. And the final tip is that you can mix complexes and drop sets. Now, a drop set, if you don't remember from a previous episode, is when you lift one weight until you can't lift it anymore. Then you reduce that weight slightly and continue lifting, and so on and so on. Now, unlike the last tip that I gave you, for this exercise you may want to do 4 or even 5 sets, with each set using a progressively lighter weight. Now, this version is definitely not for the faint of heart, so do not attempt it until you have perfected barbell complexes first. Okay, enough with the tips. Let's look at some actual barbell complex examples. Now, as usual, I'll do my best to explain it in this podcast episode, but it's probably easier to read these than it is to listen to them. So I have them all written down for you at getfitguy.quickanddirtytips.com and look for the episode about barbell complexes. So before you do any of these example workouts, remember to choose your weight for each complex. Figure out what weight you can lift properly for the prescribed number of reps in your weakest lift in the complex. That weight will be the weight you use for the entire complex. And also remember, when you try barbell complexes for the first time, I highly recommend you go through the entire complex using a bare bar or even a broomstick or a hockey stick. You want to know what is coming next and how to transition between each lift before you have a heavy weight in your hands. Practice the movements until they are well ingrained and fluid. Now, the first complex I want to tell you about is that Dan John one that I mentioned earlier. This complex is the bread and butter of a program called Mass Made Simple, which I highly recommend if you want to build some mass. And because this one is so popular, you can watch it on YouTube. And I'll put a link in the show notes again at getfitguy.quickanddirtytips.com so you can go and check it out. But this is it in a nutshell. First, you start with a standing row for 5 reps. Then you go directly into a clean for 5 reps. Then you do a front squat for 5 reps. Then a military press for 5 reps. Then a back squat for 5 reps. And then finally, good mornings for 5 more reps. The next complex is called Dvorak's Barbell Complex number 1. And it goes like this. Barbell upright row for 6 reps. Barbell high pull snatch for 6 reps. Then barbell behind the head squat and push press for 6 reps. Then barbell behind the head good mornings for 6 reps. And then finally barbell bent over row for 6 reps. Now, this next one may seem familiar to some of you CrossFitters out there because it is the CrossFit Bear Complex. And this one is simple and quick. It goes like this. Power clean for 1 rep, front squat for 1 rep, push press for 1 rep, back squat for 1 rep, and then push press for 1 more rep. And then we'll finish with the Seal Fit Barbell Complex, which goes like this. Deadlift for 6 reps, upright row for 6 reps, squat cleans for 6 reps, front squats for 6 reps, push presses for 6 reps, back squats for 6 reps, and then you put the barbell down and do 6 burpees. Holy smokes. All right, if this style of workout appeals to you, start by doing a barbell complex workout 2 or 3 times per week with adequate time between them to make sure you are rested and recovered. If you do them correctly and consistently, you should see some dramatic improvements quite quickly. Complexes have been called the Swiss Army knife of the workout world, and after you've tried them, you will understand why. And once you have a few of these under your belt, well, I bet you can find a use for them in any exercise program for almost any fitness goal. All right, that does it for this week. Get Fit Guy is written, narrated, and produced by me, Brock Armstrong, with editorial support from Karen Hertzberg. Our audience development and marketing coordinator here at Quick and Dirty Tips is Morgan Ratner. Our digital ad operations coordinator is Michelle Margulis, and our digital assistant is Emily Miller. Our vice president and fearless leader is Kathy Doyle. And if you enjoy this podcast, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. I'm at GetFitGuy, and I'm on Instagram as well as BrockArm, short for Brock Armstrong. And you can always find me at brockarmstrong.com. Now, what are you waiting for? Get out there and make it complex.